Good morning, Retro. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nate.
And we're going to play some two-player Virtual Boy.
What?
Wake up!
All right, the Virtual Boy. It's the elusive thing that nobody ever had, and
Nintendo wished we forgot about.
yeah, absolutely. So the Virtual Boy has been around for a little while, since 1995. As many of you guys know, it didn't go so well.
I think it was discontinued inside of a year. You have to keep in mind, this is coming out, they were marketing it kind of as a portable,
Yep.
which clearly it is not. And also it had the Ultra 64 looming over it. So it didn't really have an audience from the get-go.
Right. And the library of games, if you were even thinking about it, well, it's very small.
Yeah, 14 in the US, 19 in Japan.
And let's be realistic, how many were good? Two?
Not many.
Maybe 2, 3
Yeah.
decent games. And if you did enjoy them, when you pulled away, you're going to be bleeding anyways, which everyone talks about because it's all red views.
Yep, can't get enough red. So what they were trying to do, obviously, was use simple technology. You know, it's Gunpei Yokoi. He's done this with the Game Boy, so he's going to take a basic technology and make something new and innovative out of it. It just doesn't quite work with the Virtual Boy. Like you said, it's only red.
Right.
And the virtual effect, because it's got the two screens, works in principle all right in some of the games, but it's never anything that truly, I don't know, revolutionizes the experience, I guess.
Right.
So some of the best games on it are still just as good in 2D. And we're talking about good games. I would say Mario Tennis, the pack-in.
Yeah, that one's decent.
That's good. WarioWare.
Yeah.
Or not Wario.
Wario World.
Land 3. Wario Land. Yep, nailed it.
Killed it.
For the Virtual Boy. And there's a couple of shooters on there that are all right. But yeah, this thing was a flash in the pan. For a long time, Nintendo really wanted people to forget about it.
Yeah.
It was removed from their official history on the website. More recently, it did get some nods. Luigi's Mansion 3, they did put like an homage to it. There was like that
the
virtual
menu with the screen. Yeah.
So that was neat to see them embracing it again.
So obviously this isn't a fun thing to play for long periods
Right.
of time, but there are people out there, interesting people who know their stuff,
Yes.
that have been doing lots of mods on this. So
Yeah.
you have one.
So yeah, you do not need to stick your face in this anymore.
No more pink eye.
If you've got friends and people with some technical know-how, you can get components and you can consoleize a Virtual Boy. This bad boy hooks right up to a TV, looks just like a little console, and I can play a Virtual Boy comfortably on the screen. And this was put together by our buddy Danton through the Virtual Tap, which is a product that's been put out to do this mod.
Yep.
And he's really smart. He's good at this stuff. A lot smarter than us.
We can't talk about it.
Let him explain what is done here better than we will.
Inside the consoleized Virtual Boy, you can see that there's the main board from the Virtual Boy itself. On this, it has the cartridge slot up top that you load your games into. On the bottom side is going to be typically where the servo motors would go into. However, that's one of the things that we kept out just because they are essentially useless in this consoleized version. And so what is put in its place is this smaller servo motor emulator. And so what that does is that just tells the main board that the servo motors are working and functioning properly, even though obviously they're not connected. So this is something that would need to be purchased separately there. On the right hand side, you can see the wires going to what was the controller port, as well as the extension port. On the side, I believe that extension port is used for Mario's Tennis, and then even a ROM hack of a Street Fighter. On the left-hand side here, you can see that the audio board was removed from the Virtual Boy, and what that does is that allows us to use the headphone port along with the volume slider for audio. And on the back side here, this ribbon cable is connected to the main board. And what that does is that takes one of the signals from the eyes of the Virtual Boy and puts it into this, well, you can't really see it very well, but it's this red board called the virtual tap. And what that does is it takes that signal that's given from the main board, and it allows us to have a video out. And depending on which type of board you can get, both are available at Castlemania Games. One of the options is an 8-pin mini DIN, which is typically found on like the Sega Genesis Model 2 for your video out. Otherwise, what we had gone with is this VGA port as well. So you can see right up top there. And what that allows us is for your RGB as well as your ground, and then there's going to be a horizontal and vertical sync soldered on just below those wires there. So on the other hand, other side, I'm kind of testing this out. I've seen online that other people have been able to use an external power supply that's not connected into the controller to power their consoleized Virtual Boy. So this is kind of something that I've been working on there. And then just above that here is going to be your palette switch. So when you press this button in here on the back side, it changes the colors of the typically what would be red on the Virtual Boy. You can change it, I believe, to up to 8 different colors there. And so this kind of makes up the consoleized Virtual Boy. And back to you guys.
So there you have it. Big thanks to Danton for helping me make this thing a reality. I certainly couldn't have done it myself. Custom 3D printed case. You know, as he mentioned, you get the switch in the back. You can change the color palette. Doesn't have to be just red. It can be green, blue, yellow.
Yeah.
All the colors.
It's still very monochromatic.
Yes, it's still not that exciting, but you know,
Yeah.
if you're colorblind, probably a good option.
Again, the joy of it though is that you can sit down on a couch, sit back, and actually play these games.
And the biggest, and I think the biggest problem with marketing the Virtual Boy was it's a one window experience, right? So when you can sit on the couch and someone can watch what you're playing, that goes a long way.
Right.
You know, you don't have to explain the game.
And it's hard to play 2-player.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Especially if you're blind in the left eye.
And one last thing we wanted to touch on here, Nate and I have discussed this, but this book, if you're at all interested in the Virtual Boy, Jeremy Parrish puts out a great series of videos on YouTube. He's condensed them into a book. So this is the Virtual Boy Works. He goes through every game, US and Japan.
In great detail.
Yeah, and it's really nice. Comes with some 3D glasses, so you've got some 3D effects. You've got nice write-ups.
That was a game I didn't even know came out on the
baseball?
Virtual Boy. Baseball,
yeah. So yeah, it's really cool. And the nice thing with something like this is like, this is the whole library. So I've got this great book that just explains it all to me perfectly. He's very good at writing about video games, arguably one of the best.
Yep.
And you get an overview of the 14 games which we've talked about. So yeah, it's a must recommend if you're at all interested. Or if you're not, go to his or just look up Virtual Boy Works on YouTube. You can watch all these videos if reading's too hard.
Yeah, I would say for the collector, this is something that is fun to have in the collection.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I want to play games, this might not be the thing that you want to jump into.
Yeah.
But you know, there's emulation that you can still do some of that and try out some of those titles. And
yeah, it's hard to recommend owning one. Most of the games are still cheap, but there are the few that are super expensive, and you're gonna pay out for them. And it's not worth it. But it is a great as a collector's piece. It is great because it displays really nice.
It's like that Rob the Robot,
yes.
where it's like it's not practical, but when you walk in the game room, you're like,
and you see that, it's just cool. And a lot of us, I think, who are into collecting, like the history. And what better piece of oddball history? Because Nintendo doesn't screw up often to this extent.
Right.
So that kind of makes it cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Virtual Boy. There you have it. If you have a Virtual Boy, let us know down in the comments below. Maybe there's some games that you're like, hey, I love this one and this is why. Or maybe your eyes don't bleed when you play it and you just play it for hours and